Okay, are Thai men getting tired of foreigners, Westerners specifically, coming and taking Thai women? Now, this was a title, a heading of an article yesterday, which has provoked a lot of discussion on both sides. I find it fascinating. I find the topic really fascinating because since I've been coming to Thailand, I first came here in 2008, so it's already been 15, 16 years. Then you land in Bangkok, and when I landed in Bangkok, it was the most fascinating place I'd ever seen. I'd been into Africa, I'd been into sort of Northern Africa, into Tunisia and Egypt, but I'd never been into Asia. So landing in Bangkok is an attack on all senses. Like the foods, the smells, the heat, everything you're seeing is completely different to what you've seen in Spain, Italy, all over Europe, and anything I'd seen in America. It was just completely different, and I was fascinated with Bangkok because for me, my curiosity is really high. And so I was meant to be in Bangkok in a hotel for 2 days, and I ended up staying for a month because what's around the next corner? And it was so fascinating. I remember seeing an elephant on a road. There was monkeys and stuff like that. And I'm not kind of like going back 40, 50 years. This is only like very recently. It was nuts what you were seeing. And so it was fascinating. But what I did see and what you cannot like not see is there's a massive amount of people come here. And I just researched this before the video. 10% of Thailand's GDP is sex tourism. And this is prostitution is illegal in Thailand. So 10% of the GDP is sex tourism, which is really, really fascinating when you think about it. And another startling statistic is 30% of the sex workers have HIV and are living with HIV. So it goes without saying, firstly, I've never ever been interested in, it's just everybody's got their different types. For me, I really like European and Americans. It's just never been even on the radar for me. So I've always been coming here for sports. I've always been coming here initially for cycling and then for running, and it's fascinating. I've always been up here in Chiang Mai for the last 10 years. So although I spent some time down in Krabi, which you kind of had the Buddhists and the Muslims living together, which is really fascinating. And there's very little sort of sex tourism down there. And there's very little here in Chiang Mai. But when you go to Bangkok, mega, like it's insane. When you go to Pattaya and Phuket, it's everywhere. And so I initially thought, like, is this not a problem for local men? When you've got white men, essentially, they call them phalang, which is the word for white foreigner. It's like a Chinese foreigner is a different word. So I remember having this discussion. Is it not annoying for Thai men to be seen like Western men, white men with a lot more money than they have? The average salaries overseas in Europe and America, Australia, way higher than they are in Thailand and Southeast Asia. Is it not frustrating for maybe the best or the most attractive of a portion of women here to be taken away by sex tourism, by white guys just coming here and sort of flashing cash? And you see it all the time, whether it's like an older white man with a young Thai girl, or like really kind of like hideous kind of looking guy with a young pretty Thai girl, and you cannot not have that conversation over time. I see it all the time. And you look at when you've been here for a longer time, then you start to kind of hear it from both sides. And it's a really difficult topic to sort of explore, because what I realized after maybe 2 or 3 years is that these girls, and we're not talking about big city girls from kind of like Bangkok and Chiang Mai, and those are the 2 biggest cities, and then obviously Phuket is full of tourism. If you're from a small farm village in the middle of nowhere, and Thailand's a big area, then your family are actually quite proud that you've been selected to go and work in a bar in Bangkok. Your family are pretty proud if you're, and we're not talking about the top 4%, the wealthiest 4% of Thailand. Those girls are not interested in white Westerners, and it's a big kind of forbidden not to get involved. So if you already have the money, you don't need to find yourself a rich Western boyfriend and then husband. But it's an honor if a small girl from a farm in the middle of nowhere in Isan or whatever, and she's kind of come to Chiang Mai, she's come to Bangkok or Phuket or Pattaya, and then she's found love in an older white guy who's going to look after her. And there's even a dowry, there's still a dowry in place where I think I've pronounced that right, where there's literally a transaction of cash that's on the wedding day, And it can be dismissed if the person has not given up enough cash. So it's a weird dynamic when you're from a place where things happen much more naturally. And you can argue with some of these Western men that I've spoke to that it's exactly the same in the Western world in certain places, but it's not as on the surface. It's not as transactional because it happens a little bit more organically, but it's still there. For me, it's radically different, and for me, it's really sad to hear that there are still sort of some families that are very proud if their daughter gets selected to go and work for a go-go bar in Bangkok. It's very, very sad for me. It's very sad because there should be more opportunities for young people to sort of go to university and then onwards from there. It's very sad that they kind of like look away at what is actually happening, and they just think she is earning. They just have it in their minds that she is earning lots of money from serving drinks, and that's a conversation that I've had before. But to get back to the topic, and this will provoke a lot of attention, this article, and I think we'll see sort of some of the big world news outlets picking up on it. It's a topic that just doesn't get discussed in the mainstream as much as it should. Let's say, for instance, I'm from the UK. Let's say that Russians were paid 1,000 times more than they were in Brits. Let's say 100 times to make it kind of like believable. And Russian men had been coming to London, been coming to Manchester, been coming to Birmingham for the last 70 years, or since the 1970s, for the last 55 years. Let's say Russian men had been coming to the UK and flashing their cash and taking the most educated, the prettiest girls that didn't need supporting from British men. They've been taking them away and then taking them back to Russia, or kind of like being with them. And we could see that all around. There might be open-minded people, enough open-minded people, and probably 20% of British people would just see that and say, you know what, life's life, things are different. There would definitely be a proportion of British men that would be really, really, really angry at that. Really angry at it. And you would know, kind of watching this video, you would know the type of people in your small town or in your city, perhaps, that would get really angry at that. Those bloody, and this is exactly what is happening here, and what has always happened since the 1970s. It's not sort of like, there's only a proportion that go to university here because it's expensive. And so, a portion, sorry. And so, you're dealing with sort of farm towns. You're dealing with a lot of farm towns because there's a lot of area. There's a lot of coast, so you're dealing with a lot of fishermen villages. To see the girls from your village like go to Bangkok and know exactly what's going on there. To see maybe your ex-girlfriend who you're madly in love with, and she's gone to Bangkok and you know exactly what she's doing. Of course, that's going to incite some anger. And I think if you're a Western guy coming here, even if you have absolutely the best intentions, even if you're justifying it to yourself and all your friends are in the same boat because they're all here for the same reason, I find it crazy if you don't think that's going to have an impact on local men. I find it fascinating. I find it really, really fascinating. What do you think? Like, have you been to Thailand? Have you seen it? Like, what do you think when you kind of sat in a restaurant and there's an old guy next to a young, pretty Thai girl there's no way that that's not a transaction, and there's no talking going on because they've been with each other for 2-3 years, and so everything's sort of, but they're still married, and I see it all the time. Like, what do you think when you see those situations? Am I out of line for even talking about it? Should I even be bringing it up? I think I have authority to speak on it if I've been coming here for the last 15, 16 years, but for me, I think it's not a case of, okay, I'm going to go and do my own thing. If we have Brexit, for instance, I'll get up and I'll just move because it pisses me off. I don't like it. It's a wrong political decision. It's pretty obvious. Nobody benefits apart from the elite and apart from the politicians who instrumented that to make it happen, to make their political careers excel. It's a disaster for the country. For the GDP, for economy, for business. It's been a disaster and continues to be a disaster. I just get up and leave because do you know what? I can't control that. It's out of my control, and therefore I'm going to go and do my own thing. And luckily, I have the means to be able to do that, and also the faith to be able to think that I can just move to a different country and everything will be okay, because everything always is okay, because people are genuinely really beautiful all the way around the world. But if I felt that I needed to stay in my hometown or my home village or wherever I would be from, and I needed to take care of my parents and my grandparents, and I felt that, and perhaps I'd think differently. And if I wasn't educated, and if I hadn't sort of had the exposure to different places, different people, perhaps I'd think differently. Let me know what you think, because it's probably a controversial topic. It definitely is a controversial topic. So let me know what you think in the comments below.